Hello there all my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this triple rose fidget wirework ring. So I know a lot of people like to fidget with things, myself included. I personally always have to have my hands doing something. So I thought, why not just incorporate it into our jewellery, so that while we're wearing it we always have something fidget friendly on us, but at the same time it's a lovely piece of jewellery. So if you want to learn how to make one of these and get your own fidget ring, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we'll need. Now the wire that I'm using is a regular round silver coated copper wire, and the first gauge here is a 0.8mm. This will be our base wire. And then we're also going to need a weaving wire for the ring band, so I'm using a 0.4mm, but you could also use a different gauge like a 0.3, whatever you're comfortable working with. So I have some 2mm and 3mm rounds in a couple of different colours. You can of course mix and match your beads however you want to. So of course we just need a few tools as well, so I've got some flush cutters here so we can cut our wire, chain nose pliers to help manipulate the wire, and finally a ring mandrel that's going to help us size and shape the ring. Now like usual you'll find the full tool and material list in the description box down below along with some useful links. Otherwise let's get it all ready and let's get started. So the lengths of wires that we'll need is 3 lengths here of a 0.8mm of about 30 centimeters each. So like I said, these will be our base wires, so just make sure there's no kinks or bends in them. And as for the weaving wire, I'm leaving that attached to the reel, that way we have minimum wastage. So the first thing I just want to do is find out what size I want the ring to be, and then what I like to do is take a scrap length of wire and basically make myself a little tool that I can reference as I'm then weaving the ring band. So find the size and then just bring one end of the wire around the ring mandrel and have the other end here almost meet up with it. Just leave a little bit of space. Then I'm just going to take my pliers, grab onto the length here and bend it upwards. So you can see there's just a little bit of a gap because we have to account for the wires intertwining when we go to shape the ring band. Then you can remove it and then just straighten it back out, which then leaves us with a little tool that we can keep referencing. So I know when I start weaving, I basically need to weave this length on my base wires, which is then what we need to start doing. So I'm grabbing my base wires here and we can just do one at a time because we first of all need to attach our weaving wire to it. Now what you can also use the tool for is to gauge where you need to start weaving. So you want your final weave to end up being about the middle of your base wires. Doesn't have to be precise, but just roughly, so I can kind of see where I need to start. So I'm grabbing hold of that and then taking my weaving wire, placing a short end behind the base wire and then wrapping it around to attach it just once like that. And then we need to bring in the other base wires and we're going to get straight into the weave as well. So what I'm going to be doing is a diagonal wire weave. It's my personal favourite, especially for ring bands, but you can of course use whatever weave you prefer. I do have a playlist full of different wire weaves, so you can always look through that. I'm going to link it down below and you'll also find a card up here. But then I'm going to take my new base wire, place that as the new top one, and then take my weaving wire, go over the top of both of them, push it down, come up between the two, and then use that to push down with, and then bring in the last base wire. So that's the new top one, and then we'll go over the top of those two top base wires there with our weaving wire, come underneath and come up between those two same base wires and push it down, and then just wrap around the top one by itself. So we've now attached all our base wires together and we've also started out our weave and done the first round. I like to just take my pliers and kind of make sure all my wraps are squeezed tight together, and you can also help straighten out the weave with that. And then what we basically need to do now is weave the full length of our ring band. So you just want to start another round of our weave. So I'm going around the bottom base wire by itself and then over the top of the bottom two. And just keep pushing down those wraps, come up between those same two that we just wrapped over the top of, to then go over the top of the top two base wires, and again come straight up between them, so we are able to wrap around the top one by itself. And if you need to, again you can squeeze your wraps nice and tight. But then just keep weaving like that, and then once you've done a decent length, you can start to take your tool here that we made and measure so you can stop at the right time. So now weave the whole length, and as you can see, it fits nicely with the little tool that we made. Then we can cut off the weaving wire because we're done using it. We're just going to use it for the ring band itself. So what I'm going to do is the final place where I wrapped it around, I'm just going to go to the back, cut off the excess, making sure there's a tiny little tail left. Get that out of the way. And then I'm going to take my pliers and just kind of squeeze down that tail, so flatten it down, and then just slightly roll it in the direction the wrap is going. That way it tucks it in nicely in between the base wires. Of course, we also just want to finish off the other end here, just get rid of that little initial tail that we left. And same thing, tuck that out of the way, because obviously we don't want any ends of wire to catch or scratch on skin or clothes. So just feel it with your finger. Then we have our ring band ready here, but of course we need to shape it. So I'm going to take my ring mandrel, and then I'm going to make sure the back side of the weave is against the ring mandrel, and then just start to bring the ends closer together. Now what we need to do with the ends of the wire is actually intertwine them. So basically, imagine my fingers are the wires, end up having them sitting like this. So intertwine in between each other. So we just need to kind of arrange that. So I'm just making sure I grab one from one end and then take one from the other end and then alternate them between each other, just like that. And then we can push that down. So you can see I have them intertwined, and then we just need to finish off shaping the ring band. And you can see that's why we needed to leave just a little bit of gap when we measured how long we needed to wrap the weave, because intertwining the wires like this obviously is going to do so the ends of the weave won't quite meet up here, but like this is fine. So we now have our ring band in place, and we're ready to start working with these ends of our base wires. And the first thing we need to do is grab two of our base wires and basically interlock them. So I'm going to grab the very outer one on either side. So on this side it's the one coming from that end, and on the other side it's coming from the other end. And I'm going to start bringing them towards each other here in the middle, just going over all the other base wires. And then basically what we need to do is twist them together. So that kind of locks everything in place. But what it also actually does is starting out our very first rows in the center. So just basically keep going. Now what I like to do is first of all bring the twist up a little bit and away from the ring band. So kind of just raise this up a bit, you can see there, from the very base. But once you then have that, we basically just need to use these wires to start making the first rows. And the way that we do that is basically just continuing to twist these wires together as we are bringing them around and around. And the twists are going to then end up basically looking like the petals of the rose. So I take the back one and bring it underneath the front one, and then leave it there. And then I take the new back one here, bring it underneath the new front one, and continue to bring them around and around. Take the back one, bring it around to be the new front one, and then we're basically creating a spiral here where we're twisting the wire along the way, and that creates the appearance of a rose. So just keep going until you reach the size of the rose that you like. So you can stop at any point. So just keep going here. I'm almost getting there. You can also make your roses different sizes. They don't all have to be the same size. So for instance, you could make the middle one here, the large one, and then make the ones on the side smaller. So that's completely up to you how you want yours to look. But I think I'm pretty much there now. So I like the look of that rose. So I'm just going to leave my wires here for now, because then what I want to do is just create the other two roses. So the one on either side of the one here in the middle that we just made. And we're going to use the other base wires for that. So the two going towards this side, I'm going to use to create the rose on that side, and the other two to create the rose on this other side. So what we need to do is again start our twist out. So just working on one side at a time. I'm kind of just separating the wires so I can get my fingers further down, and then they're coming there from the middle, and I want to just start twisting them just like this, just using your fingers, and then have it come a bit further out. So just do one more here, something like that. Then I'm going to grab my pliers, and we need to then bend these wires upwards. So same principle as this rose here, we need the wires to come up in the direction so we can start creating the rose, because like the other one, we're working from the center outwards. So what you need to do basically is bend these wires where the middle of the rose is going to be. So bear in mind we need to have enough space from the middle of that rose to the side of this first one that we made to accommodate for the space that this is going to take up. So grab onto the wires and then just bend them upwards. Something a bit like that. And then I'm just going to keep twisting. Now we've just changed the direction of the wire. And this is where we can start creating our rose. So same principle. You need to bring the wires around each other. So basically it's like the wires are chasing each other. The back one is overtaking the front one, and I'm bringing it underneath in the process. Then the new back one is overtaking the new front one, bringing it underneath in the process. And just keep working in the spiral, building your rose like this. Just like I showed you in the middle one. And again, just keep going until you reach the size you want it to have and you like how it looks. Gonna just bring this back one around to the front, and I kind of think I like how that looks, so I'm gonna stop there and then just bring these wires, pull them tight and bring them underneath the flowers a little bit. Of course we're still working with it, so we can still adjust things, and I just basically want to repeat on the other side. So again, just start twisting your wires together, open up slightly, and then from the middle outward twist them until you reach where the midpoint of that rose is going to be, and then we can bend them upwards. So we just change the direction of the wires, but otherwise we keep twisting. So start out the center of that rose, have the wires chase each other all the way until you're happy with how it looks. Again, I'm just going to kind of pull these a little tighter. You can also use your pliers to help push any wires into the positions you want them to be, because it can sometimes be a little bit hard just using your fingers. So I'm just going to push those wires kind of down underneath the flowers, because obviously we do want to kind of hide ends away and things like that. So what we have now is our 3 roses in place, and we have the ends of our base wires kind of sticking out and away from them. Now in this case here, I've ended up with 2 towards one side and then 4 towards the other. What we need is actually an even amount on either side. So I need to bring another length of wire down on this side here, and it's going to be one of the middle ones. So basically we're going to separate out the middle ones. So I'm just going to pick one out, and the other one is going to stay where it is. But this one, I'm just going to literally bring it around underneath the rose. You can see there, so we kind of hide it underneath, but then bring it out in the direction here of the other one. So I now have 3 on this side, and we also have 3 on the other side. So we're going to use these base wires that we have left to then add the fidgety part of it, where we're also going to add our beads. So I'm going to start with the inner ones here, and they're the ones coming from that middle rose. Now before we actually move any, we of course need to remember to add the beads. So on the inner one, I'm just going to add 1 of my 2mm beads on each. Now for all of these, this is just how I'm doing. You can of course do it however you want to, in a completely different way if you choose. And then what I'm going to do is make sure the bead stays down there, then bring the wire around, make sure you have a curve added into it, so no sharp bends or anything. And this first one is going to be quite small and not stick out too much, but of course also make sure the bead actually can move on the wire. And then this one here, I'm going to bring down between the 2 roses on the other side. So you can always use your pliers to help squeeze it in, and try and make sure that it comes underneath the roses like that, and then it comes out towards the other side. So I'm just going to do the same with the other length, also coming from the middle rows. So again, add your bead first, so don't forget that. Let it drop down and then make sure it stays there while we're then bringing the wire around, adding that curve in. And I like to try and make them symmetrical on both sides here, so they're as even as possible. Just make sure to push that down as I'm bringing the wire around. And again, also make sure that this wire goes down in between and then underneath the roses if possible. So something like that. You can see we have two curves with these first wires, and we've also added our beads. What I'm then just going to do is secure these in place, and I'm going to do that by making sure the curve stays as it is, how I like it, and then bring the wire, bend it down and through the ring band and back to the other side here. So just like that, and I'm just going to do the same with the other one. Hold on to the curve while I'm bringing the wire down and through the ring band to come out the other side. And then just kind of put it as close to the inside of the ring band as possible. Make it as flat as possible. So this will obviously add a little bit of bulk to the inside of your ring band, so you might just need to size up the original ring size a bit. Now you can choose to add the beads and shape all these lengths first and then finish off the ends of the wire as the last thing, or you can kind of do it as you go. It's completely up to you. Obviously doing it as you go will maybe help getting rid of some of the ends and make it easier to make the next few ones. So what I'm going to do is cut off the excess, but I'm making sure to leave a bit of a tail there, because we need to use that tail, just cut that off, to be able to secure that wire in place. So I'm going to grab onto it with my pliers, just the end, and then start to bend it inwards back towards the roses, and then basically have it tuck away in underneath, in this case the center rose. You can always use your pliers to help squeeze the wires in place, really tighten them nicely, because then obviously that's going to secure that wire, first of all to secure the curve with the bead, especially because there's going to be movement when you want to fidget with it, but also finish off the ends without it being able to catch or scratch on our skin. And then of course just do the same with the other side as well. Get rid of the excess, grab onto the very end and bend it inwards towards that center rose, and then tuck it away. So that's the two middle wires that we've gotten rid of. So now we have the rest of them to work with here. So basically what we're going to do is just work our way outwards. I'm going to grab the next wire in line on either side, just do one at a time, and then start to kind of bring it over. Now of course don't forget to add the beads. I'm just going to start getting the curve in place, but then add the beads however you want to again. So this is just how I chose to add mine. I'm mixing up the colors a bit now. Get a little bit of interest in there, and then we want to continue bringing the wire around. Now this curve is going to be just slightly bigger than that very first one. Of course you can add more beads or less beads as well, that's completely up to you. I like to kind of just add a few so there's space for them to move around. Now what I'm going to do here is bring this length of wire on the outside of that very last bead on the opposite side there, and then just bring it underneath as far as you can. So we kind of tuck it in underneath that rose, and if you need to, just use your pliers to help push it in place. So something a bit like that, and you can see the beads move nicely there, so you just want to make sure to check that as well every time. Now what I'm just going to do straight away, because I like the positioning of this, is bring the end of that base wire down against the ring band and then through it to the other side, just so it's ready to be finished off there and it's fastened in place, while I then go around and just work with the other one, because I don't want anything to move out of place. So also if you find that your length of wire here is not quite smooth and it's a little bit misshapen, you can just kind of run it through your fingers a few times. It warms up the wire and it helps smooth it out. And then you just want to of course add your beads again, and I just like to do it in the same way as the other side, but you can also make the two sides different from each other. It doesn't all have to be symmetrical. Add your beads, let them drop down, and then start bringing your wire around, adding that curve as you go. And again, I'm going to try and make it about the same size as the other side, and also of course make it match the side that I'm working with it on. And then bring it underneath the rose on the opposite side. And if you're not quite happy with the curve, you can always use your pliers to help shape it, because obviously you can't really get in there with your fingers, it's a little bit tight for space. So just use your pliers gently to help shape the curve, and once you're happy with it, then bring that through the ring band to the other side to lock it in place. And then again, it's the same principle. I'm just going to finish mine off now, and you just want to make sure to do it same thing as before. Leave a bit of an end on it so we can grab that and bend it back around the ring band again, but now over the top, but then make sure to tuck it in underneath that outer rose. And again, that fastens the wire in place but also tucks it away. And then just repeat the same with the other one. And finally, we now have two wires left, one on either side, and you can probably guess what happens with those. So first of all, I'm adding my beads, and here I just added 4 of my 2mm and then 1 of the 3mm in the center, just to kind of mix it up a bit and give some different texture with it being fidgety as well. And then of course, same thing, bring it around, making sure it gets a nice curve to the other side there. And this of course needs to be just ever so slightly larger than the previous one, but making sure there's enough space for the beads to move around. And again, this comes on the outside of that outer rose, and once you're happy with how it's going to sit, just make sure to push it under as far as it'll go, and then push it through the ring band. Same principle. And out the other side. And of course just repeat the same with the wire on the other side as well. And then of course you just need to finish these off in the same way as I showed you previously. So cut off the excess, leaving a long enough tail that we can grab onto, and then bend back towards the rose, and then make sure to tuck it in underneath so we get rid of the end, and just repeat the same on the other side as well. And then you should have your finished ring. Now you might find that your ring band has gone a little bit out of shape while you've been working with it. In that case, just put it back on your ring band drill and just make sure it gets its original shape. And also, if you need to, if these curves are kind of going downwards, so basically they would obstruct your finger going through, just lift them up a little bit so they're laying basically flat just alongside the roses there. Otherwise, this is the ring finished and ready to wear. And obviously while you're wearing it, you have the cute little pretty roses, but then the fidgety part as well that also adds some color depending obviously what bead you've used. So I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial for this triple rose fidget ring. It's something a little bit different, but I know a lot of people, including myself, like to fidget with things, so why not incorporate it into our jewelry? Now I have actually made some previous designs that are also fidget friendly, and I do plan on making more, so therefore I've actually created a playlist specifically for that type of jewelry. I'm going to make sure to leave a link to that in the description box down below so you can check it out. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one here. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, honey bun. Now, like usual, you'll find the tool it's not quite smooth, and it has a little bit of kinkiness or and then what we basically need to